The metal door hissed open, and Ryan stepped into the cold corridor of cell block 9. He wore his dark gray uniform, his helmet tucked under one arm, and his boots echoed against the steel floor. This was not his first day watching alien prisoners, but something about this block felt different. Silent, heavy, like the air itself didn't want to breathe. He stopped in front of cell 93. Inside was one prisoner. She sat still on the center of the floor, her hands bound in glowing cuffs, her back straight, eyes closed. The cameras called her Specimen Zaytanine, but to Ryan, she looked more like a person than a thing. Her skin was golden, smooth, almost glowing under the dim light. Her long white hair fell down her back like silk, and her body was tall and athletic. But what caught his attention most were her eyes when they opened. They were deep violet, not blank, not wild, just. Watching, Ryan checked his tablet. Prisoner stable. No incidents. Still. Something told him to stay. Maybe it was boredom, or maybe something more. He looked into the glass and said quietly, "You can hear me, right?" She didn't move, didn't blink. Then, to his surprise, her lips moved slowly. "Yes, I hear you," she said, her voice soft, strange, and beautiful. Ryan stiffened. Aliens usually didn't speak English unless taught, and she had no teacher here. "You speak?" he asked, trying to stay calm. She nodded gently, her gaze sharp, but calm. "I listen. Every day, every night." Ryan swallowed hard. No one told him she could talk. This wasn't in the briefing. Still, he leaned closer, curious now. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered Zira. The name felt ancient, powerful. Ryan looked down the hall empty. No one watching, then looked back at her. "You're the last of your kind here, aren't you?" Jira blinked slowly. "My kind left me," they said. "I was dangerous." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't sure if she meant dangerous to them or to him. Before he could ask, she spoke again. "Human, show mercy," she said, her voice trembling now, but still strong. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Mercy," he echoed. "I don't decide your fate. I just guard the door." She shook her head, her cuffs glowing brighter for a moment. "No. You decide, more than you know." Her words confused him. Then she said something that made him step back. "My body can give powerful offspring." Ryan stared, his mouth opened slightly. "Excuse me," he said, shocked. Jira slowly looked up, her eyes glowing faintly now. "My blood is rare, my genes strong," she said softly. "Your people want to use me, break me, take what I carry." Ryan felt his chest tighten. He had heard rumors about alien gene experiments. He didn't want to believe them, you're saying? "They plan to?" "Yes," she said, cutting him off gently. "But not if you help me, human." Ryan turned away from the glass, shaking his head. "This is insane," he muttered. But even as he said it, something inside him told him she was telling the truth. She continued, "I do not want to give them what they want, but I will choose." Then she whispered something that shook him to his core. "I choose you, human, not them." Ryan spun back to face her. "Why me?" he asked, confused and angry and lost. She simply smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Because you're the only one who speaks to me like I'm alive." Silence filled the corridor. Ryan didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared at her, as questions raced through his mind. Who was this woman really? What had the war hidden from them? And what would happen if he believed her? As the lights flickered above, Jira closed her eyes again and whispered, "They're coming for me tomorrow. I will not survive that, not without you." Ryan stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never broken orders, never even thought of it. But now, one alien's voice was shaking the walls of everything he believed in, and deep down, he knew this was no longer just a job. It was a choice that would change the future of two worlds. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He lay on his bunk staring at the ceiling, replaying Jira's words again and again. Her voice echoed in his mind, soft and sure. "They're coming for me tomorrow." She had said it like a fact, not a fear, and that made it worse. He had seen the reports earlier. High Command planned to transfer prisoners from Cell Block 9 to the central lab. They called it a science station. But every soldier knew what really happened there. No one ever came back from it, not even the corpses. The next morning, Ryan walked into the security hub earlier than usual, pretending it was a routine shift. His partner, a young recruit named Dale, handed him the tablet and stretched. "You pulling double shifts now?" Dale asked. Ryan shrugged. "Can't sleep much lately." "Yeah? These freaks get under your skin if you stare at them too long," Dale said, chuckling. "You hear the rumor? That tall one, in 93. They say she's got gene-matched fertility. Or something. Makes super soldiers, if you..." He stopped and made a crude gesture. Ryan forced a cold smile, but his chest was burning. He walked out without answering, gripping the tablet tighter than needed. When he reached Cell 93, Jaira was already standing. Her eyes locked on his the moment he arrived. No words, not at first, just a long, quiet look. Then she spoke. "You came back?" "Yeah," Ryan replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Not sure why." She tilted her head, studying him. "Because you believe me?" Ryan didn't answer. He looked at the tablet in his hand, then tapped the security feed off. The screen went black. Camera disabled for maintenance. That gave them 15 minutes, maybe less. He stepped closer to the glass. "Tell me the truth, Jaira," he said in a low voice. "What are you really?" She took a slow breath, her shoulders rising and falling with quiet strength. "I was born for one purpose: reproduction," she said. "My people made me, not by love, but by science. My blood was mixed with ancient warrior DNA. My body was enhanced to bear strong children." Ryan swallowed, the words chilling him. "But when I grew older, I began to ask questions. I refused the breeding chamber," she continued. "I ran. And they called me broken." "You're not broken," Ryan whispered, and he meant it. Jaira took a step forward, her chains clinking softly. "Your people will not use me better. They want my secrets. But they don't care if I live through it." He nodded slowly. "They're moving you to the lab tonight." "I know," she said. "You'll die in there." "Yes," she said again, with no fear. "Unless..." Ryan leaned closer, his voice rough. "Unless, what?" She pressed her palm against the glass. "Unless you help me escape." Ryan froze, heart pounding, thoughts racing. Every part of his training screamed no, every rule, every law. But her eyes begged him with something he hadn't seen since the war began. Hopi looked around the corridor, empty. "I don't have a plan," he said honestly. "You have courage," she replied. "That's enough for the first step." He exhaled slowly. "Why are you doing this? Why trust me?" She looked at him as if the answer was obvious. "Because even when I offered my body, you didn't ask for it. You asked for my name instead." Silence followed, heavy and full of meaning. Footsteps echoed down the hall, a patrol making rounds. Ryan quickly reactivated the camera feed and stepped back. Jaira sat down again, returning to her silent position. But as Ryan walked away, her voice followed him one last time. "Tonight, near the waste tunnel, behind Cell 88, there is a door humans forgot." Ryan didn't look back. He kept walking, pretending everything was normal, but deep down, he knew nothing would ever be normal again. Tonight, he would make a choice no soldier should ever have to make. Save an enemy, or follow orders, and whatever he chose, the galaxy would never be the same. Night had fallen over the prison facility, but Ryan was wide awake. He sat alone in the locker room, fully dressed in black undersuit armor, staring at the wall clock. The minutes ticked slowly, each one heavier than the last. He had never broken a rule in his life, never disobeyed a direct order, but this time, he wasn't just following orders, he was following something deeper. In his hand was a stolen security card, high-level access, one he had quietly lifted from Dale's locker An hour ago. His heart pounded as he slipped it into his wrist cuff, syncing it to his ID for temporary override. It would work only once, just long enough to open that forgotten waste tunnel behind Cell 88. Just like Shira said, he moved through the empty halls like a shadow, keeping his footsteps light, avoiding every security cam he had memorized over the years. As he reached the far end of the corridor, he paused and checked the map on his tablet. The waste tunnel was there, hidden behind a cracked maintenance panel, untouched for years. Ryan pried it open carefully, the rusted bolts creaking in protest. Behind it, darkness stretched into silence, cold and unknown. He crawled in without hesitation, dragging a small pack behind him. He had brought food, a med, and a stun blade, all he could risk. The tunnel was tight. The air smelled like old chemicals and rot, but he kept crawling. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes, he reached the other Sita, broken access hatch behind Cell 93, right where she had described. She was waiting, standing tall, even in chains. Her eyes met his the moment he emerged, but she didn't speak. She didn't need to. Ryan activated the override, and the security field shimmered, then fell. The chains on her wrists glowed red, then faded into ash. She stepped out slowly, her golden skin glowing faintly in the dark. "You came," she said quietly. "I said I would," Ryan replied. "Can you walk?" "Yes," she nodded, though her movements were stiff from weeks of captivity. They moved together down the tunnel, quickly and silently. At one turn, they stopped as footsteps echoed above them. To guards on upper patrol, Ryan pressed against the wall, shielding her with his body. Her breath touched his neck, warm and fast. And for a moment time stood still. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked, whispering near his ear. Ryan didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure himself. Was it guilt? Kindness? Or something else he didn't want to admit? "I don't know," he finally said. "But I know you don't belong in a lab." She looked at him, her violet eyes, soft now, not desperate, but thankful. "Most would not care." "I'm not most," he said. They kept moving until they reached an old side chamber, a forgotten maintenance room just outside the facility walls. Inside was a hidden exit door, sealed from the outside, but not from within. Ryan swiped the card, and it buzzed green. The door slid open with a long hiss. Cold night air rushing in. Freedom, but it didn't feel like victory. Not yet. Not when drones circled in the sky and sensors lined the outer zone. Ryan pulled out a cloaking blanket and threw it over both of them. They had to move fast, stay low, and stay invisible as they stepped into the wild. Shira suddenly stumbled. Ryan caught her before she hit the ground. Her body trembled, her skin flickering with faint pulses of energy. "What's wrong?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "My body," she whispered, her voice shaking. "It's reacting. Too soon." "Reacting to what?" "You," she said, looking into his eyes. "Our contact, the choice. Something has awakened inside me." Ryan stared at her, the weight of it hitting him all at once. She wasn't just escaping, she was changing, and he had triggered it. Whether by touch, or trust, or something older, something buried in her DNA. It had begun. He helped her up, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Then we better find shelter, fast, together." They moved into the alien forest beyond the fence line, hunted by drones, betrayed by both their kinds, and bound by something neither of them understood yet. And somewhere, deep inside Jira's trembling body, a new life had already started to form. The forest was alive with strange sounds. Glowing plants shifted under their feet, and alien insects buzzed in the air. Ryan had never seen this place before. Even though it was just outside the facility walls, this land wasn't mapped, because no one was allowed to leave the walls alive. He helped Jira walk through the thick brush, her body weak but trying to stay upright. Her golden skin shimmered less now, her energy clearly dropping. Each step looked harder than the last, but she didn't complain, not even once. "We need shelter," Ryan said, scanning the area. he spotted a cave half covered with twisted vines, its opening dark and hidden. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. He guided her inside, using his flashlight only briefly. The cave was dry and cool, with a smooth stone floor and a narrow back wall they could rest against. He dropped his bag, pulled out a thermal blanket, and wrapped it around her shoulders. Sierra sat slowly, her breath uneven. Her hand rested on her stomach, and her fingers trembled. "It's growing fast," she whispered. Ryan crouched beside her. "You mean the baby?" She nodded. "Your kind and mine were never meant to mix. The life inside me is a risk to both species." Ryan looked at her, confused and concerned. "Then why did you let it happen?" She turned her head slowly, her violet eyes calm. "Because I had nothing left. No future, no family, no purpose. But then you spoke to me like I mattered, like I was not just a tool, and in that moment, I decided, even if I die, I will leave something better behind." Ryan didn't know what to say. He had seen soldiers break down after battles, seen children cry in ruins. But this was something deeper, something powerful, and he knew then, he wasn't just protecting a life. He was protecting a choice. He sat beside her, letting the silence speak for a while. Outside, drones hummed past, scanning the area. One paused near the cave entrance. Ryan held his breath, hand on his stun blade, ready to fight. Jyra stayed, perfectly still, even as sweat rolled down her face. The drone's red light passed over the vines, then moved away. They were safe for now. Ryan let out a slow breath, then handed Jyra a water pouch. "Drink slowly," he said. She took a sip, her hand brushing his. And for a moment, time slowed. The touch was soft, electric, but not lustful. Something warmer, something real. "Thank you," she said quietly. Ryan nodded. "Get some rest. I'll keep watch." She leaned back, eyes half closed. "If I don't wake up." "Don't say that," Ryan cut in. "But if I don't," she continued gently, "you must protect the child. Promise me." "I will," he said without hesitation. "But you're not dying tonight." Jyra smiled weakly. "You sound sure." "I am," Ryan replied, his voice firm. "Because I didn't risk everything just to lose you here." Her eyes slowly closed, and sleep finally took her. But Ryan stayed awake, sitting at the entrance of the cave, holding his blade tight, and watching the trees with sharp eyes. He didn't care about the war anymore, or what his superiors thought. All that mattered now was the life sleeping behind him, and the new one, growing inside her. And if anyone came for her, human or alien, they'd have to go through him first. Morning light crept into the cave, dim and soft. Ryan sat by the entrance, eyes half closed, his blade still in hand. He hadn't slept, not even for a minute. Outside, the forest remained quiet, but that quiet was heavy, like a storm building. In the shadows, Jyra stirred behind him. She groaned softly, placing a hand on her stomach. Ryan turned quickly, kneeling beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly, but her skin was pale now, less golden. Her breathing was faster than before, and her hands were shaking. "It's growing too fast," she whispered. "It's draining me." Ryan opened his pack and pulled out a nutrient bar. He handed it to her, and she took it, biting it with difficulty. Her body was trying to hold on, but it was clear she wouldn't last long like this. "We need help," Ryan said, more to himself than to her. But there was no one to call, no allies, no friends, no backup. He had chosen her, and that meant walking this road alone. He helped her to her feet, wrapping the thermal blanket around her shoulders again. "We can't stay here. The drones will scan this cave eventually." Jyra nodded, but her steps were slow and weak. Ryan supported her as they moved through the trees, careful, quiet, trying to stay hidden. Hours passed, and the forest grew darker, thicker. The trees began to twist unnaturally, and strange sounds followed them: crackling leaves, distant whispers, shadows that didn't match the light. Ryan's instincts screamed that something was wrong. Then he saw small blinking lights in the trees, sensors, human sensors. His people were tracking them. "Move faster," he said, his voice low but urgent. Jira tried, but her body wouldn't respond. Suddenly, something whizzed past Ryan's era tranquilizer dart. It hit a tree and hissed, burning through the bark. "Ambush," he shouted, pulling Jira down behind a thick root. He drew his stun blade and activated the energy field, its blue glow humming to life. Figures moved through the forest, armored humans, at least 4 of them, silent, armed, and fast. They didn't call out, didn't ask questions. They were here to capture or kill. Ryan gritted his teeth. "Stay down," he whispered to Jira, then charged out with a roar. He slashed at the first soldier's weapon, cutting the rifle in half. The second lunged at him with a baton, but Ryan rolled and stabbed the stun blade into his side, knocking him out cold. A dart hit Ryan's shoulder, but his suit absorbed it halfway. He stumbled, but kept going, fighting, with everything he had. But there were too many. One grabbed him from behind. Another tackled him to the ground. Ryan growled, struggling, but they pinned him down. Then a loud pulse rang through the trees, deep, powerful, almost like a wave. The soldiers froze, their helmets flickering. Something was happening. Ryan looked up through blurred vision and saw Jira standing on shaky feet, her body glowing again, but this time with blinding energy. Her eyes were shining bright violet, and her hands sparked with light. "Leave him," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. Now, the soldiers hesitated, their sensors shorting out. One took a step back, but another raised his weapon. Jira raised her hand, and a pulse of energy slammed into the attacker, sending him flying 10 feet into the trees. Ryan blinked. In disbelief, Jira fell to her knees right after, panting, her energy fading fast. The remaining soldiers backed away, dragging their wounded with them. They didn't speak, they just ran. Ryan crawled to Jira and held her as she collapsed into his arms. Her body was burning with heat, and her skin flickered between gold and red. "You saved me," he whispered. She looked at him weakly. "I didn't mean to, but the child inside me, it responded to your pain." Ryan held her tightly, fear gripping him harder than any enemy ever had. If this kept happening, her body might not survive the next surge. "We need to find real shelter," he said. "Somewhere safe, somewhere you can rest." Jira nodded faintly, her voice barely a breath. "There is a place, far east. My people once had a sanctuary, hidden under the cliffs." Ryan didn't waste a second. He picked her up in his arms, cradling her like she weighed nothing, and started walking. Behind them, the forest slowly fell quiet again. But now, Ryan knew, they weren't just running anymore. They were being hunted, and if he didn't get her to safety soon, he might lose both her and what she carried inside. Ryan's legs ached with every step, but he didn't stop. He carried Jira through the dark alien forest. Following the fading directions, she whispered between moments of pain. Her body was burning hot, her skin changing color, glowing red gold, like fire trapped under the surface. The trees grew thinner as they moved east, and soon, rocky cliffs rose from the ground like broken teeth. Jira lifted a weak hand, pointing ahead. "There," she whispered, behind the stone wall. Under the waterfall, Ryan squinted through the mist, and sure enough, a thin waterfall trickled over black rock, barely noticeable from a distance. He pushed through the vines, stepping carefully across the wet stones, until his boot hit something hollow. He knelt and brushed aside moss and dust, revealing a flat panelloed alien and cracked with time. Jira reached out and placed her hand on the panel. Her palm glowed, and a soft hum filled the air. The wall beside them began to shift, stone moving with deep grinding sounds. Opening a narrow passage into darkness, Ryan stepped inside, carrying her down a stone hallway lit by dim green lights. The air was dry and cold, and the scent of dust and metal filled his nose. After a short walk, The tunnel opened into a large circular room. It looked like a forgotten temple, curved walls lined with alien symbols, broken consoles scattered across the floor, and a large platform at the center, covered in soft moss and glowing crystals. Ryan gently laid Jyra down on the platform. She closed her eyes, breathing hard. Her hands trembled as she touched her stomach. "It's starting," she whispered. "The transformation is beginning." Ryan knelt beside her, panic rising in his chest. "What does that mean?" Sierra looked at him, sweat on her forehead, her voice shaky. "My body is trying to merge our genetics. It's choosing which parts to keep, which to change. It's never happened this fast before." He held her hand tightly. "Then we stay here, no matter what." "I'll protect you," Jyra smiled weakly. "You always say that." Ryan looked around the room, spotting what seemed like a medical console. He rushed over and brushed off the dust. There was a screen flickering, but alive. He tapped the surface, and alien symbols lit up. Jyra watched him from the platform, her voice barely above a whisper. "That system. It's old. It might still have healing programs." Ryan didn't understand the language, but the images helped. He tapped a green symbol that looked like a body, and a nearby panel opened from the wall, revealing a pod-like structure. Without waiting, he lifted Jyra and carried her to the pod. Gently placing her inside, the pod's walls adjusted to her shape, sealing around her softly, and a light scan began from head to toe. Jyra gasped, her body arching slightly as the system connected to her. Energy surged through her veins, calming the violent pulsing in her skin. Ryan stared in awe as her breathing steadied, her color returning slowly to golden. "You did it," she whispered. "It's helping." He smiled, but his relief didn't last long. A red symbol began blinking on the screen, and a mechanical voice echoed through the room in alien language. Jyra's eyes widened. They activated a distress signal when the pod came online. "Someone will come." Ryan's jaw tightened. "How much time?" "Maybe an hour," she said. "Maybe less." He looked down at her, then at the pod. "Can it finish healing you before then?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But if it can't, you must save the child. Ryan, promise me again." He shook his head, gripping the edge of the pod. "No, I'm not choosing between you and the child. I'm saving both." Jyra smiled with tears in her eyes. "You're kind. You fight even when hope is gone. That's what makes you different." Footsteps echoed in the hallway, faint, distant, but growing louder. Ryan grabbed his stun blade and stood by the pod, body tense, ready. Jyra whispered one last thing before the pod sealed fully around her, beginning the deeper healing phase. "No matter what happens, I'm glad it was you." Ryan turned toward the tunnel entrance, the glow of the pod behind him lighting his back. His heart beat like a drum, but his mind was clear. If someone was coming, they would find a human standing alone, guarding a future that belonged to two worlds. And this time, he wasn't backing down. The footsteps grew louder, sharper, more focused. Ryan stood still beside the glowing pod, his hand gripping the stun blade tightly. His heart thumped in his chest, but his mind was calm. He had made his choice, and there was no turning back. From the tunnel, 3 figures emerged, armored and human, soldiers from Earth, dressed in black stealth suits. Their rifles raised the moment they saw him. "Ryan Harper," the lead officer said coldly. "Step away from the alien. You are under arrest for desertion and aiding an enemy." Ryan didn't move. "She's not the enemy," he said calmly. "She's something more. She's a weapon." The second soldier snapped. "We received the signal. She's in a biochamber. She's trying to merge human and alien genes. Do you even know what that means?" "I do," Ryan said. "It means change. It means a future where we're not killing each other over blood and borders." "She's dangerous," the leader shouted. "Stand down, or we open fire." The pod behind Ryan pulsed with a soft white light, then cracked open. A hiss filled the air, and warm golden light poured from the seams. The soldiers paused, blinded slightly. Jyra rose slowly from the pod, Her body was glowing, stronger, taller. Her wounds were gone, her skin brighter. Her eyes no longer just violet, they were burning. Stars. Her voice echoed softly, layered with a power no human could copy. Enough. The soldiers froze, their rifles shaking slightly. Ryan turned to look at her, his eyes wide. She stepped forward and stood beside him, not behind him anymore. Her hand found his, and he felt the strength in her touch, not just physical, but something deeper, something alive. I am not a weapon, she said to the soldiers. I am the bridge between two broken worlds, and I carry the future inside me. One of the soldiers lowered his weapon slightly, doubt flickering in his eyes. The leader, however, shouted, "She's manipulating you. She's controlling your mind." "No," Ryan interrupted. "I chose her because she showed me something I've never seen in war." "What?" the soldier asked. Furious mercy. There was silence, long and heavy. Then behind the soldiers, something unexpected happened. Another group entered the tunnel. Not human this time, but Jannari, her own people. The Jannari commander stepped forward, his weapon lowered. His eyes met Jira's, then shifted to her belly. "So, it is true," he said slowly. "You carry a hybrid." Jira stood tall. "Yes. And if you harm him, or me, you destroy the only chance our species have to survive together." The Jannari commander looked at Ryan, then at the Earth soldiers. Then he slowly dropped his weapon to the ground. "No more blood," he said quietly. "Not today." The Earth soldiers didn't move for a long moment. Then, one by one, they lowered their weapons to Ryan exhaled deeply, his grip on the blade, relaxing. Jira squeezed his hand, her expression softening. Outside, dawn began to rise over the cliffs, lighting the sky with gold and pink. The war wasn't over, but something new had begun. Not with armies, but with a choice. Jira stepped forward and placed a hand on her stomach. "Our child will not be born in chains," she said. "He will be born free, and he will never have to choose between human or alien, because he will be both." Ryan stood beside her, proud, tired, but unshaken, and as the first light of morning broke through the cave entrance, the two of them walked forward past soldiers, past enemies, toward a future no one had dared to imagine, one made not by conquest or fear, but by mercy.